Alrighty, we are here with Rob Herzog, founder of ZogSports ZogCulture, all things Zog that you see everywhere you look, especially in the tri-state area, but and beyond, we'll call it. But Rob, pretty surreal having you on here. My wife Dana really enjoyed your kickball league back when we lived in Hoboken, and her leg is still sore because she kicked the ball over Mama Johnson Field. So really cool. Thanks so much for joining. How you doing today, Rob?
I'm great, Max. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad Dana had such a good time. Every time I hear a story like that, it reminds me of like why I started this entire endeavor.
Yeah, exactly. For you started for Dana. It was really thoughtful. But
Right, exactly.
so we're gonna get into all things Zog Sports and beyond, and dive into your mind, your personality a little bit like that. But before that, I have to ask another thing that's pretty crazy to think about. So we're recording this a little bit after the 24th anniversary of 9/11,
Yeah.
and doing so many interviews like this, every now and then 9/11 comes up and people share their stories. You have just an unbelievable story that needs to be told. Can you just take us to the morning of September 11th, 2001?
Sure. So, morning of September 11th, I had a brand new job, maybe been in it about 2 months. I was basically kind of I don't know, call it VP of operations of Marsh & McLennan's internet group. It's a big Fortune 200 company, helping them build internet products. Not exactly the job that I had wanted because I was a small company. I wanted to build something, but I thought this will be a great opportunity to build something and really learn. Wake up on September 11th. I had just come back from vacation, and I wound up doing a whole bunch of things that morning that I never would have done otherwise. So, first of all, my office was on the 96th floor of the World Trade Center's North Tower. That morning, I took the local train instead of the express train. I dropped off my laundry. I picked up my mail because I'd been on vacation. All these things that basically delayed my arrival at the World Trade Center by probably 5 to 10 minutes. So I arrived. I basically walked down the street south, and I came around the corner. I heard a noise. I looked up, and there was a gaping hole in the side of the building right where my office had been. And I was standing there as smoke was just kind of billowing out of the building, and I like counted down the floors from the top, and I figured out that like the center of the hole in the building was exactly where, like directly where my office had been. And so the experience that day was I tried to get closer to the building. I didn't even know exactly how long I was there. And then, you know, second plane hits, everybody runs, and I, was just really lucky because 297 people from our company who were there did not survive. If I had been there 5 minutes earlier, I would not have survived. And so, after a long bout of survivor's guilt of what am I doing on this planet? Why did this happen to me? I basically kind of came around to a few really kind of founding thoughts that wound up changing the rest of my life. One was that you can't predict what's going to happen, and some things are just you just have to accept what happens, right? They're luck, they're not luck, good luck, bad luck, kind of who can tell. And so 4 months later, Max, I'm sitting on a beach, literal beach, and I have a drink in my hand, and I'm feeling very sorry for myself. I'm like, wow, what a bad year I had. I closed down an internet company I was helping run. I laid off 30 people who reported to me, including people I personally recruited. I was unemployed for 4 months. I got a job I didn't particularly like, and then 9/11 happens. And I'm like, wow, that is just a terrible year. Then I looked up at the sky, no joke, all blue, one small puffy white cloud. I looked at my drink. It's a Piña Colada. I call this my Piña Colada Epiphany moment. My drink was exactly half full. And I just started laughing. And I look at the cloud. I'm like, really? And so I go, okay, I accept your challenge. I go, what are the good things that happened this year? And the good things that had happened over the course of the year were I'd stopped traveling for work and I'd started playing rec sports again. I'd forgotten how much I loved the camaraderie of being on a team. The second was I saw all these people after 9/11 really wanting to give back and really wanting to kind of have a place and kind of heal. And I felt like they didn't really have that. And then finally, I had met my wife playing co-ed softball. And so you combine those three things, and I basically all of a sudden like ran back to my hotel room and I said, I'm going to go start a business that does recreation, that does a charity focused recreational sports league for grown-ups that didn't really exist, and in the way that I wanted it to work. And so like I ran up to the room, I wrote wrote like 16 pages of notes. I went back, and 9 months later, I launched the business. Um, so that was the founding story of Zog. It was, my Piña Colada Epiphany.
You should trademark that. Before we get to Zog, real quick, can you just share what it's like having survivor's guilt? Because I feel like so many of that, like, I think it's a very common term, but it's unique to actually experience it.
So survivor's guilt comes in a few different buckets, just in terms of kind of how it manifests. The first is internal, where it's why me? Like, why did I survive? The second is just guilt of looking externally, of why did those people not survive? And then finally is like the piece where you try to kind of reconcile, what am I supposed to do with this information? And so it is not easy to overcome. It is something that every 9/11, by the way, I go down to ground zero and I go thank first responders, just saying like, hey, on 9/11, I was running this way and you guys were running that way. And so I thank them for what they do. And they, are incredibly, for the most part, very appreciative, but most of them are so young that some of them weren't even alive. Uh, the, the survivor's guilt is something for me. The way I kind of got through it was that it had nothing to do with deserving or not deserving. Did I deserve to live? Did those like? So I had to just get rid of that concept, and it was just it. This is all random. This is all luck. And so the real question was, I got this second chance, and what am I going to do with it? So that the part of the way I overcame it was action, was acceptance of the fact that it was unpredictable and it was luck, and then doing something about it. So the fact that I wound up doing something and creating all of this community and connection and charitable contributions that really did uh, monetarily and emotionally impact post 9/11 New York was, to me, really, really meaningful, and it really helped with the Survivor's Guild.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That's I obviously it's more deep than what you think about with like an entrepreneurship podcast, but it is truly a beautiful story how that infamous day fueled and created something beautiful as terms of what turned out to be your business and connecting so many people and organizations and kids and adults together. And yeah, there's so much to get to. So let's switch it up. Let's get to Zog. And I think ZogSports, and for anybody listening who's not from like the greater New York area, like if you live in the city or you live in Hoboken or parts of, like Connecticut or Brooklyn, anything, it is so common to see people wearing ZogSports t-shirts and like people wearing those bright color, different color t-shirts, and you're like, oh, okay, so they're doing some sort of like, intramural or rec sports league. So it's pretty cool. Like you've built quite the footprint, I must say, by now. But you hinted at before how you came up with the idea and when you first launched it. How did it click in your mind that this isn't just something that's kind of like something to do this year? This is actually something that we can build a business around and expand our footprint here.
So Many entrepreneurs start with identifying a problem, and the problem is often personal, right? So it's, what do I want? What do I need? And so many entrepreneurs have a bit of a shortcut in terms of the learning process of the ideal customer, because the entrepreneur is the ideal customer. So for me, I was the customer. So the beauty of shortening the product cycle for Zog was I basically built what I wanted and needed. And so what I wanted and needed was decent level of competition, but not crazy. I knew I was going pro in something other than sports. I knew that I didn't want to have fights and arguments with the other players or referees. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to talk to people after the games. I wanted to socialize. I wanted to meet new people. I wanted to build community. I wanted to actually have shared experiences and connections, which is how people make friends. And so I was the customer. And so the inspiration of Zog was really understanding what I wanted, but then also testing it with what a larger swath of the population would want. And so then it starts with trial and error, right? It starts with, you basically put a minimum viable product out there, and we launched our very first season with touch football. We then did volleyball. We then did touch football and softball, right? And then we continued to grow, and only after many years of really testing the product and making sure the product was consistent did we actually expand to other cities. And because our thought was, we're a service business, and if the service is not consistent, and the service and the experience for our customers is not consistent and not exactly what we want, then it is really it really becomes a commodity of like, oh yeah, we just organize volleyball games or soccer games or whatever it is, as opposed to the experience that we actually really wanted to be differentiated.
What have you noticed about the the differences in terms of different sports, like how much the experience varies when you're launching a new one into the mix?
Mm. Different sports have different personalities, and there is a personality of participant in the sports, and that, interestingly, Max, has really changed over 24 years. 24 years ago, many people used to just play sports because they had been exposed to all sorts of different sports growing up. They're like, I've never played volleyball before, I'm just going to play volleyball, right? Oh, I haven't played soccer since middle school, but I feel comfortable enough to play soccer. Now, most of the soccer players actually won't play unless they've actually, played in high school. So they're like more experienced soccer players, and so people are less willing to try uh, sports that they have never played before. It's something that we continue to try by having levels of competition. It's something that we continue to try to, bring people in to really have this recreational social experience, and have been very successful at that. But different sports have different personalities. Like, for example, we kind of almost would break down sports into um, more competitive sports, real sports, right? Like, and then kind of middle sports, and then like purely social, right? So it would be, soccer, basketball, uh, kind of at the top, and then in the middle, it would be, kind of your softball and your volleyball, kind of in the middle, and then you would have your bowling and your kickball and your cornhole and your and by the way, pickleball actually is our biggest fastest growing sport, but it even pickleball actually has levels, right? There are some people who are like, yeah, I want to play pickleball just have fun, and some people are like, no, I'm playing pickleball. So some of it depends on the person, and that's why you really have to listen to the customer, and you have to have good people on the ground on site who actually try to make the experience as good as it can possibly be. If uh, and listen to the customer, make sure the levels of competition are appropriate, and really make sure that people are actually having the level of competitive experience that they actually want to have.
We used to play pickleball in Hoboken, and we did a couple of times. And one of those times, there this group of guys this duo of guys was like so intense that they just totally sucked the fun out of it. Like all of it. It's like I would say like pretty good at pickleball and could play with like a lot of people, but these guys was like a ball from the court next door like went onto the court in the middle of the play, and like they just kept playing and like wouldn't stop and like wouldn't give it back to the other people. It was like, oh my, some people are so cutthroat. So I see that we were talking about the levels of competition there.
Max, the story that I've told for years is, I feel so incredibly grateful. I did some math recently, just of how many people's lives we touched, and it's like well over a million people that have played in our leagues over all the years, and probably closer to two. And I used to say that if I could handpick the customers who choose to play Zog versus other recreational sports outlets that are out there, I would say if I could handpick about 95% of the people, I would handpick. And then I would just say the other 5% need therapy.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, millions of athletes of Zogleets, if that's the name. Really incredible growth there. What would you say has been like the biggest drivers of actually expanding this thing and like achieving that crazy level of scale?
The first is really knowing the customer. So it started with me, but one person is not a business. That is not scalable. So how did I then hire people who cared about the same purpose that I have, right? And so my purpose is life is better when you have real personal connections, feel like you're part of a caring community, and infuse a sense of play and fun into life. So I had to hire people who believed what I believe. Then I had to train them and give them the tools to go out and execute and improve the idea. And they became the people who were closest to the customer. And then we hired more people, and they became the people closest to the customer. So the key to growth starts with really knowing your customer. Then it starts with really having that consistent purpose, that North Star. Then actually having a culture where everybody knows that they're driving in the same direction. Everybody knows the behaviors that are acceptable, the core values that are acceptable to doing your job. How do you do your job? How you do your job is as important, Max, as what you do. What you do is getting a great field to play soccer, is making teams in a good level of competition. How you do it is caring about the experience that people have when they're there, the customer service, the communication, the personality of the people who are actually at the field on site. So the scaling starts with that, and then it becomes a little bit more, quote, business scaling, because you now have that foundation of purpose, values, of kind of behaviors and how you do things. And then you figure out how to scale what, right? The what then becomes, okay, what can we automate, right? So you have to know, you can't just like start a business and just start automating stuff. I mean, you could, but
I feel like probably a lot of people are these days.
Right. But you have to know what you're automating and why. So the way we did it was we basically spent years figuring out how to, like, what exactly we want to do. And then we built software. Then we automated. Then we figured out how to scale certain functions of the business, right? So that's when we automated. When we automated was, okay, in order to scale, to get from, one city to 6 cities, or to get from, 20,000 people playing a year to 100,000 people playing a year. What do we need to have? Because we're not going to have 5 times as many people. working for us full time, right? So how do you scale? And so a lot of scale was around automation. A lot of scale was about consistent process. But that only came once we knew what we wanted to do.
Yeah. So how do you do that? So let's say your customer base increases fivefold, which I mean sounds like a dream to any business owner, but also like if you're in the weeds, that also sounds like a nightmare. on the on like the back end or automation side of it, like what were some things that you're like, hey, we need to smooth this out real quick as we're expanding new cities?
Right, right, right. So I'll just think of it like, I mean, back very, very long time ago, we were like manually creating schedules. And, if you have 20 leagues, you can manually create schedules. If you have 100 or 200 or 400, you really can't manually create schedules. So we basically, that's just an example. We basically built some software that would have templates in it where you plug in the templates and it automatically, generates a schedule, and then it automatically published a schedule. Right. So that is, I'm not going to call it seasonal work, but it's cyclical work, right? So the season starts, let's call it, let's say you have 5 seasons a year that kind of maybe start at slightly different times. That's 5 times a year where you have like 1 to 2 weeks of intense schedule making. Well, it's only 10 weeks a year that you really need someone doing that full time. So how do you smooth it out, right? So that's just one example. And um, and sometimes it needs to be a little bit custom, right? There is some software out there that did it, but for us, you know, back, uh, earlier in our uh, development, we had everyone's charity on the schedule, right? So everyone picked a charity that they played for. Our motto was "Play for your cause," and it came right out of 9/11 of, hey, we're playing, but we're going to donate, kind of 10% of proceeds. It was kind of my concept of post 9/11 giving back, but it was also my concept of like tithing, and we're going to give 10%. We're going to give 10% back, and we wound up donating over the years like over $3 million to charity, and um, so the we needed on the schedule to basically have the names of the charity on the schedule. So when your team played my team in touch football, we went and met each other as captains of the team beforehand, and the introduction was, "Hey, I'm Rob. Hey, I'm Max. What charity are you playing for?" And so that became part of our secret sauce of, you want to talk about taking those pickleball guys, you want to talk about taking their level of competitiveness down. It's like, you're not playing for a trophy, you're not playing for money, you're playing to donate money to your charity. So it's just a little reminder that actually takes people's brains and it makes their brain kind of go, right, this is a recreational, football league, soccer league, softball league, etc.
Yeah, that's a really nice reset. And I guess happy hours afterwards don't hurt as well.
Competitive flip cup boat races are very, very helpful to making a good happy hour and building camaraderie. I can't tell you how many people met each other at games and at post game happy hours, and we have hundreds of photos where people asked for us to send shirts so that everyone at the wedding who was on the blue team, the aqua team, the green team, like we're all wearing shirts for a photo at the wedding. So
And you yourself, you said you met your wife playing softball, right?
I met my wife playing softball, not Zog, because it was
Before
pre-Zog.
Yeah.
But yeah, second base shortstop. Yeah, she's got game.
Wow, you guys could turn a mean double play.
Yeah.
All right, well, one of the other fascinating aspects of your business that seems kind of like a logistical nightmare, but obviously you guys have mastered it over the years, was like, if you think about any like soccer field or softball field or park in like a busy city area, like that's exactly what it is. Like these places are busy. Like it's hard to get on the field. It's hard to reserve time on the field. How in the world did you figure out a way to like reserve and like book these fields so you say, hey, you guys actually have a field to play tonight, and do that at such scale?
So, Max, when we were talking kind of before we started the official recording, I told you how much I love developing relationships with people, how sometimes I just leave my house and just look forward to talking to random people. I think that every conversation you have could be interesting, educational. You never know where people's backgrounds are, you never know where they're coming from. I find people interesting. And I really, really like people. And I am a total extrovert. I get so much energy from talking to people. So it started with Rob walking around and developing relationships with the people who manage the access to the facilities. Once I figured out my angle and my approach and the charity angle and the fact that we were going to be a really kind and caring renter of these spaces, and then we basically were getting spaces to be referrals for new spaces. It's a long-term relationship building game. But then what I did is I then ran training for everyone who ever would go out and talk to a facility. And I ran training for that for many, 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 many years. That was one thing that as a business, as the CEO, I held on to because it was so important. So I wrote up training. I wrote up, how do you approach? I wrote up even when you walk into someone's office, what can you notice about the office, right? So if I walked into your office and I saw a baby picture, right? And I know I have kids, and I was like, I see a baby picture on your desk. I might go, tell me about the baby. Like, so boom, I develop a relationship with you because I see something. Then we have something in common, right? So it's so much of it is about developing relationships. How can you make these people? There's no benefit to these people to rent space to you. They don't get any money from it, right? So there's no reason for them to help you. So how do you develop the relationship then? Well, you actually have to work on developing the relationship. So I ran all that training. I really worked with people, and then I hired people who had that desire to develop relationships with all sorts of different people. And then I used to call it a building block strategy. You get one field, never lose it, right? So you get the field, you get the gym, maintain the relationship, right? By the way, this goes for clients too, right? This goes for any business, right? Just because you got a client doesn't mean you keep the client, right? And by the way, much easier to keep the client than get a new one. So a lot when I do CEO coaching and kind of business advisory for scaling and PE backed firms as well. And that's one of the things that I preach is what are you doing? Sure, your sales engine is very important, but what are you going to do to keep those customers? And so that's a lot of what we did in order to build and scale. And by the way, we did not go 5x in 1 year. We basically, though, we did hit our numbers. Talking about kind of our wild business growth, we hit our numbers every quarter for 18 years.
Wow.
Right, from founding up until COVID. COVID's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother chapter.
Yeah, exactly.
But we hit our numbers every year, and the numbers were never easy, but the numbers were never so ridiculous that they were unachievable.
I really like that building block strategy. Like, can totally get behind that. It's not the LIFO or FIFO version with clients. So, yeah, that's really smart. Start small and add to it. And actually, I hinted at it before, but because ZogSports and like the shirts and the logo is like so omnipresent when you're walking around these towns, how did you, I guess, enable that? Like, make this brand something that can spread and be a good place for word of mouth or word of T-shirt like that.
Well, the T-shirts themselves, when when a group of people is wearing a T-shirt and they're playing and they're having fun, and a group of people is walking down the street and going to a bar, and then they're in the bar wearing the T-shirt, so that people will be in the bar and they'll go, oh, those people they're having fun. Oh, what are they wearing? Oh, they're wearing a shirt. So some of what we did,
unless they're not wearing a shirt, if it got really wild, but that's a separate story.
Yeah. So one of the things that we did over the years was we actually really encouraged people to wear their T-shirt, right? So we had rules put in for like tiebreakers of people wearing t-shirts, or you couldn't get the special at happy hour if you weren't wearing your t-shirt, right? So there were a bunch of kind of rules, and I'm not going to call them tricks, but encouragements to actually wear the shirt. So that was number one. But number two is, um, how do you have a brand? Zog means nothing, right? Zog's my nickname since I'm 8 years old, right? So, but the whole brand is not about Rob, right? Rob started it, but Rob is no longer the brand. The brand is Zog, and the Zog brand represents what? And so we had to tell people what it represented, have consistent communications about what it represents, and then you have to execute it, right? So what is it? What is the purpose? What I said before, Zog is about community. Zog is about connections. And Zog is about reminding you that leave your job and have fun, have some play, right? It's harder. It's harder and harder to remember now, especially with people working at home. It's like what we do is even more needed than it probably even was maybe 24 years ago when I started.
So let's switch gears a little bit more. We're gonna zog our way to. Sometimes I call this inspiration and creativity because I always love diving into the minds of founders and hearing like how you stay creative, how you stay fresh, how you stay unplugged. And actually, we were chatting a little bit before I hit record, and you're at a really fascinating point in your life right now. Because what we didn't quite get to, but I do want to hear about, is the fact that you've since sold your business. So that's one major change earlier this year. The other part is that in the past few weeks, you became an empty nester. So a huge, huge change as the tears start flowing down your face.
I know.
Huge, huge.
I'm gonna try not to cry.
You're welcome to cry. Open. This is a safe space here, Zog. So I guess with those two big changes in mind, can you just take us through like what's kind of going through your mind right now, and how's this experience been for you so far when your day to day for a couple of decades is no longer nearly the same as it was?
So let me start with being so proud. I feel so grateful, Max, like that I found my I found my why in life, and then I went and did it. Like almost no one has that. Almost no one I know is as lucky as that. So now I consider it luck, right? The Piña Colada Epiphany, it was about luck, right? But being able to look back and being so proud of what we built. It's not what I built, it's what we built. I didn't do this by myself, right? An unbelievable team, which I'm going to get to in a second. Unbelievable team who helped me realize my vision. All along, though, I was able to actually build the life that I wanted to build. So if you think about being an entrepreneur and all the other entrepreneurs who've been on your show, they have different goals, right? Some may not be able to articulate their goals because their goals may be only business. For me, one of my big goals was being able to be present for my kids and not travel so that I could coach every one of their sports teams. So, for example, I coach 79 youth sports teams, and I only have 2 kids. I coached 79 youth sports teams from the time they were in kindergarten through, call it, whatever, 9th grade or so.
Real quick, I have to interject here because when we were chatting beforehand, I was telling you about my dad. So shout out Greg, and you were like, "It sounds like your dad and I should hang out." My dad was the coach of every single one of my youth sports teams, and my brother growing up as well. So you got 2 peas in a pod here.
I tell you, we're gonna hang out. So when you look back about kind of all the change, first of all, looking back and really having like almost no regret is like such an unbelievable, grateful place to be. I would change nothing in what we did. And the fact that I can say that, and that is not generally the way my brain works, the fact that I can look back and say that is amazing. So let's talk about kind of our selling the business. So I had a few criteria if I were to ever sell a business, and I had no intention of selling the business. It was not part of the goal. I loved what I did. I loved the business. I loved our team. I loved the continued purpose. I loved the fact that because people are working from home, our purpose is even more present and needed. Our services are even more needed than they were before. And I got a whole bunch of interest after there was one of our biggest competitor, a very well run and respectable competitor named Volo, had gotten some money from outside. And uh, I, we then started getting a ton of interest. And private equity was reaching out to us, and everyone I was talking to wanted something that I didn't want, right? They wanted to invest money, walk away, and say, grow the business, but then we're going to kind of puppet string control you from outside, and we're going to tell you how to grow and tell you what to do. And look, part of being an entrepreneur for me over all the years, one of the things that I did is I never took outside money, so I never had anyone telling me what to do, right? I would listen to my team, but no one outside made me do anything. So when it was time to go to a new city, we talked about it. Could we do? What kind of resources would we invest at whether it was technology or a new city or marketing or whatever it was. And then we went and we executed. And so only after we started talking to our biggest competitor did we realize we were completely aligned in what our goal was. And when a competitor is a competitor, right? You kind of you don't know them because we're all competing. We're competing for the same space. We're competing for the same customers, and they have the same philosophy of kind of fun and connection and community as we do. And they also have a big charity angle to what they do. They have an amazing youth sports foundation where they run kids programming. And so after getting to know them, I was like, this is the perfect landing spot for Zog. And I really had two major criteria in coming up with, if any exit at all. And number one was a landing place for the business, a landing place where Zog was not going to become a uh, you know, financial analysis driven organization. I wanted a place where what we built, whether it continues with the Zog brand name or it uses the Volo brand name, it was going to build on the communities that we built. And they are already true to their word. They are investing, they are caring. Not everything's going to stay the same, and that's okay, but they are caring about building community. So that was number one. And number two was my team. My team is amazing. And one of the things that we talked about during the negotiations was how good my team is, and you really should keep all of them. And I don't know what will happen going forward, but for the most part, they hired almost every single person on our team, and all of those people are just loving the new opportunity, and they're finding the experience um, to be worthwhile. It's a new chapter, it's a new opportunity. There are different resources. And so I really couldn't be happier with having found a landing spot for Zog. For me personally, it was 24 years of, I mean, my job changed over the years, right? It went from like, I was the guy who was developing relationships one-on-one on site at facilities, getting them to, rent a space to us, to, kind of managing an organization with, just under 1,000 people, employees, including kind of referees and et cetera, like that over the years. So like at some point I knew all of our full-time team, but I didn't know all of our part-time team, certainly. And so it was time. It was time. It was time for me to take everything I learned. So one of the things that's most amazing is you learn a lot in school. And then I learned more running this business than I could have ever imagined about people, about prioritization, about how to actually solve a problem and how to actually get something done. That is not what you learn in school. And So I've learned so much that I feel that I'm on to the next phase of my career where I want to share all of that experience and all of that wisdom with other entrepreneurs and help them grow their business. So that kind of what's next. That's one of the things I kind of think is next. And then on the empty nest side of things, and I'll try not to cry. Is I have a very very close relationship with both of my sons, and they are ready to go out into the world, and they have the tools to solve problems without their parents there. My wife and I are not helicopter parents. We don't generally solve their problems. We but we're very involved in their life, so they feel very comfortable calling us when they need us. And I know that we have done, of course, we made mistakes, but I know that we've done everything we can to try to make them the the best versions of themselves at ages 18 and 20. And so I feel great about it. And I also feel great about that we still have a really good relationship. Like I still play fantasy baseball and fantasy football, and we still talk. The kids are still watching the Yankee games, and they're calling me. I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe so and so came in and like blew the lead, right? So we're and I also hear about my younger son's playing college baseball. My older son is playing tons of club sports in college, and so they'll call me and tell me how their games are and what happened. And I helped my older son twisted his ankle, and he like calls me and he is like, how do I fix my ankle? Right. So we still have a great relationship. So it's something I'm really kind of proud of having built the legacy of Zog, but also having built a relationship with the kids at the same time, because you can't get that time back.
Yeah, well, those are just. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, and it's crazy. It's like we all go through different chapters of life, but it's crazy how you have two giant changes at the same time. And so I'm just curious, like, if you have any advice for anybody who is entering a new phase where, actually, I have some more free time in my day. Like, what do I do with this?
So, by the way, you want to talk about change, though? There's other changes too. Communities that I was part of. For example, my work community, my my partner, COO, Mike. I used to talk to him like a million times a day for 16 years. Now I talk to him like every 3 weeks. It's weird. He's one of my favorite people in the whole world, and I'm not talking to him. So you all of a sudden you have a community of people who you don't even realize how much you rely on them. So that has dissipated. I still talk to people, but it's different. Same school community for 15 years. All of a sudden that community's gone. We still talk to people from the community, but we're not going to back to school night where we're like, there aren't events that we're going to. So, um, so it's really hard. So what I'll tell people going through that is just recognize what's happening. You don't have to solve the problem right away. By the way, this is 18 years of insight meditation practice and kind of self-reflection, also kind of coming out in my answer here. Recognize what's happening and recognize that it's something that is not within your control. You don't have to solve the problem right away. Now, you also need to see how it makes you feel. You need to see, is there something I can do? Oh, I have extra time in the day. Well, forgive yourself if you get to the end of the day, you're like, wow, I said I was going to do X, Y, and Z, and I didn't do any of those things. Maybe that's what you needed in that particular day, right? Maybe you needed to do nothing today, right? I had a bunch of days in the last couple months where I said, you know what? Today I'm going to do all these things. And at the end of the day, I hadn't done them. And I basically forgave myself. Now that's hard to do. Type A personality, driven entrepreneur. I have a to-do list. I get the to-do list done. And then sometimes you have to just forgive yourself, because sometimes your brain just needs to relax. Sometimes your brain just needs to reset. And if you allow it to do that, sometimes thoughts will come. Sometimes ideas will come. Sometimes it'll be a simple idea where I was like, oh wow, there's a whole bunch of guys from our like school community that I really like. Well, I need to set up a get together. So I just set up a recurring, wine tasting group, right? So, but I had to do that, right? Like, I'm the connector, right? So it's gradual. It's a gradual change process that you don't need to fix all at once.
I see a Zog wine coming in the future. I think there's something there. Well, I'm gonna mess up your day one more time. We're gonna wrap up with rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get
I'm
wild.
gonna lean. I'm gonna lean forward.
Yeah,
Here we go.
please do. The closer to the camera, the better. All right, let's get wild. If you could be that childhood dream of being a professional athlete in any sport, what sport would it be?
Uh, Professional baseball, shortstop. I love baseball. I love the fact that the shortstop touches the ball more than almost anybody else. So there's a kind of a concept. There's a leader. You're always involved in the play.
You also find your wife at shortstop too.
Exactly, exactly. Uh, I also love the fact that baseball is so cerebral, and you are thinking before every play. So you're not just doing. And kind of the way my brain works is I'm not just a doer. I'm a thinker doer. And so I love the fact that in each play you're trying to figure out how to get an advantage of where should I position myself? What should I be expecting? How can I outthink the kind of the opponent on things? And then, by the way, at the tail end of that career, I think I'd like to go to Japan and play because their community of professional baseball in Japan is ridiculous. It's kind of like Premier League soccer where they're chanting, they're singing, they're totally sold out. It's like totally, it's a completely different baseball experience. I think I'd like that.
Oh my God. Yeah, I would love to go. I mean, Japan in general is definitely on the bucket list, but Japanese baseball league just seems so fun. And what's the name? The team name always cracks me up. The Ham Fighters.
Oh yeah,
The
the
Nippon.
Nippon Empires, yeah.
Yeah, where a lot of these MLB pros come from. Oh my God, the names are amazing. All right, what you actually had experience getting formal education, as you said, at
Yes.
a couple different Ivy League schools. One for undergrad, one for grad school. I mean, and obviously Ivy League has a reputation of being pretty ruthless and beautifully challenging from an academic standpoint. What was the biggest difference about undergrad and grad school at a couple different Ivy League schools?
All right. So the first difference was me. I was a completely different person when I went to undergrad than when I went to business school. So when I went to undergrad, I was, oh wow, I'm going to the school. I went to Brown. I went to the school. Everyone's smart, and do I belong here? Imposter syndrome. And by the time I was there for like a few weeks, I was like, oh, I totally belong here. I'm as smart as at least some of the people here, and uh, and what I loved about Brown was like so many opportunities to learn, but everybody was like finding themselves. And so if everybody's basically spending time finding themselves, there's a lot of kind of uncertainty and it's also such a diverse population. So that was kind of my experience, kind of undergrad. But then when Rob went to business school, I was a different person. I had much more focus, even though I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just had much more focus professionally, and so therefore I was, kind of if you narrow your interests, you have there's kind of a narrower population of people, and so you just have more in common. So what I'll say is also, so besides me being different and being, by the way, much more confident, much more comfortable in my own skin, much less worried about what people thought of me. I mean, like literally just that in that, whatever it was, like 7-year period in between the beginning of undergrad and the beginning of business school, like I was just a completely different human. Um, and so the other difference is in undergrad, uh, everyone's pretty much the same age, right? In business school, there's a much bigger age difference. Like the age difference of people coming into business school is between, like, let's say like 25 and 35, right? Or even 40. So massive differences in experience, massive differences in worldview. And so really a lot more kind of real world what's going on. So there's a lot less focus on ivory tower in school class learning, and in business school, so much more of taking what you learned in the classroom and figuring out how it might apply to the rest of the world.
Oh yeah, can totally see that application. Well, I can apply that to a few. No, I'm just kidding. Totally random, totally different note. What's a pet peeve you have? Something that just ticks you off, but really it's not a big deal in life.
Okay, all right. The word no, huge pet peeve of Rob. Don't say no. Like if we're having a conversation and like I or anyone starts to ask a question, don't say no before you even finish, right? So I'm open minded and I actually really love listening and I love learning about other people. Don't say no. Don't really have a closed mind. And by the way, the other one, litter.
Mm.
Man, I see people walking around. They like drop garbage. I'm like, this is your community. This is your home. Like, please don't litter. Right. So there's my public service announcement. Please don't litter.
So then, if there was a sign that said "Say no to litter," your head would be in a pretzel because then there's two things going back and forth.
No, you're allowed to say no to litter.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and then what is a hidden gem in the Upper West Side? This could be a restaurant, it could be a thing to do, it could be a bar, which is something that like really is a pretty cool spot or thing.
Wow. All right. This is a good one. All right. So I'm so fortunate to live midway between two of the greatest parks in the world. So I'm halfway between Riverside Park and Central Park. And so what I'll say is hidden gem, Riverside Park, bringing a little bit of your own happy hour down there and watching the sunset. Hidden gem, there is the North Woods of Central Park is has some like hiking trails, and there are certain times when you're on a trail where you actually feel like you're like hiking in a national park. So again, it's only for a short period, but again, just hidden gems of outside nature. There's also this unbelievable tulip garden on like 88th Street that like for 2 weeks is one of the most beautiful places in the whole world. Um, so yeah, those are a couple things. Some people might pick a restaurant or a bar or something like that. I'd go with kind of something a little different.
I appreciate that. I mean, everybody flies to Amsterdam and Holland for tulip season, but who knew in the Upper West? There's a
Oh
couple
man, it's
blocks that would
amazing.
be great. All right, last one. This doesn't have to involve you, but it can. What's like the funniest moment you've ever heard about something happening? Like the funniest thing that's ever happened at a Zog sports competition?
Wow, the funniest thing that's ever happened. I mean, we have a couple of famous ones where like Bill Murray showed up and like decided he was gonna
Of
like
course
I
he
don't know,
did.
I think like play kickball. Like I like that was like uh, kind of amazing. Bill Murray did like he was just wandering around, found us, and then wound up playing in the game. So I mean, you want to talk like every person at that game remembers when Bill Murray showed up and played.
Bill Murray strikes again. It is unbelievable how there are endless stories of him doing that, and he's
Yeah,
just. I mean, like yourself, he clearly just loves interacting with people and he's very cognizant that hey, I'm Bill Murray. If people like me and want to hang out with me, why not? Why not make their day? So, really cool. Well, Rob Zog for short. Thank you so much. Just absolutely like yourself and other people have loved talking with you and really appreciative for taking the time today, but then all you do to create a beautiful business and be the brightest part of so many people's days. So thanks so much for coming on. Where's the best place if somebody wants to connect with you online or learn more about Zog Sports as well as Zog Culture? Where's the best places for them to do that?
So first, me personally, new email address, robert@robherzog.com. And obviously LinkedIn, super easy to connect with me there. Kind of on to the next phase of career, specifically around kind of helping companies grow on kind of strategy, culture, and actually people. And as terms of the business, the you can still find Zog everywhere we are by going to zogsports.com. And for ZogCulture, going to ZogCulture.com, but also going to VoloSports.com. Zog in some of the cities is already becoming integrated into the new combined organization, and so that's just VOLO. And excuse me. So yeah, so that's what I would. That's probably the best places to find info about Zog Sports, Zog Culture, Volo, who also has a bunch of other amazing programs, and then me, easy to find. Happy to talk.
Smashing. I try to mix up the words because they say perfect and awesome so much that smashing felt right today. Last thing, final thoughts could be a quote, words to live by, whatever you want, just short and sweet. Take us home here.
Favorite quote: two roads diverged in the wood, and I took the path less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. My boy Robert Frost.
Bring on the bongos!